Take a look at this, guys. It's the new 2024 Mitsubishi Xpander facelift, which has just been launched here in Malaysia. It comes with a few notable updates, both in terms of aesthetics and a little bit of what's under the skin as well. Let's take it for a drive to see what's changed, what hasn't been changed, and of course, if this should still be your small MPV of choice. Let's go. So let's begin with the prices. First, the new Xpander starts from just under 100,000 ringgit, which is actually 1,000 ringgit less than the last price of the pre-facelift version. Now, if you remember that far back, the Xpander was launched in 2020, deep within the COVID seasons, as well as the sales tax holiday. So that started off at 91,000 ringgit. But through the years, year on year, it has had quite a few small little price increases here and there, and we ended up with 101,000 just a few months ago. So now the Xpander facelift is a little bit cheaper than before, but that's only because we now have two different versions to choose from. The base Xpander is pretty basic. It comes with fabric seats. If you want leather seats, you'll have to go for the more expensive Xpander Plus version, and that brings the price up to 110,000 ringgit. So yeah, technically there is a small price increase for this facelift as well. But that also comes with a host of other upgrades. Most significant of all is the looks. Now, the old Xpander did very well, mostly based on its looks. It sold over 40,000 units in its first 4 years. That made it by far and away the best-selling non-national MPV in its class, beating the likes of the Honda BR-V, which has already been discontinued now. But since then, the competition has gotten a lot tougher. Toyota launched the Veloz, which is basically an upmarket Pro Dua Alza, and that is priced cheaper than Xpander and is much better equipped, especially in terms of safety. That still stands for the facelift as well, unfortunately, which I'll get to in a bit. So I'm sure the Xpander facelift will have a much tougher time to get as much market share as before. But if you speak to Mitsubishi Motors Malaysia, they're actually confident of increasing their market share. It definitely helps that this facelift improves upon the pre-facelift version's strongest point, which is looks. At the front, the old version had this kind of messy looking chrome mustache, I call it, whereas this new version, the center grille is now full glass black. It's much more modern looking. It's sharper, it's sportier, and overall a better looking car. The signature Mitsubishi dynamic shield also stands out a little bit more, especially without the center grille being in chrome, so that distinctive chrome line is a lot more apparent now. The headlights have also been completely overhauled. What was before a rather large reflector unit has been completely swapped out for much nicer looking T-shaped triple projector units. This again gives off a far sportier look. On the side, you've also got slightly larger 17-inch wheels, an upgrade over the old 16s, and at the back again is the same treatment. The taillights now have updated graphics, now with more vertical elements, making the car look taller and a bit more upmarket as well, and the rear bumper is much more modern now too. It's small little changes if you look at it from afar, but if you are to park the car side by side with the old version, the upgrade is actually very apparent. One thing that is not so obvious to the naked eye is that the new version actually rides quite a fair bit higher than the old version. The ground clearance has been upped by a full 20 millimeters, up to 225 mm now. This gives the Xpander technically still a low MPV, a higher ground clearance compared to SUVs such as the all-wheel drive Honda CR-V. That is amazing. They've chosen this because, Malaysia has got a lot of flash floods here and there, so you now have an easier time handling those difficult conditions. Together with that, the rear absorbers, the rear dampers have also been updated. They are now slightly thicker units, and this helps to give slightly better ride comfort, especially in the back. Moving on inside, the dashboard is practically all new. It looks nothing like the old version, and it's got a new screen, new aircon controls, new soft touch leather pads, and even a new steering wheel. Now, according to Mitsubishi, this new steering wheel design is actually inspired by the Evo 10s, which I don't really know how to react to be honest. The Evo 10 is like 15 years old, and to have a new car still be inspired by your past hero, yeah, I really don't know what I think about that. But at the same time, there is no denying that the new steering wheel looks far better than the old one, so I guess that is still an improvement there. Another important update for the facelift is the adoption of an electronic parking brake now, replacing the old handbrake. Now, I don't really have anything against regular handbrakes, but the old version did look really oversized and very much old school. This now looks much cleaner, and it comes with an auto hold function as well. That is very good to know. But now, on to the things that they have not changed, the powertrain combo. The engine remains the exact same 1.5 litre naturally aspirated MyVec petrol engine, and is the same outputs as well, 105 PS and 141 Newton meters of torque. That is very similar to what the Toyota Veloz offers, if a little bit down on power compared to the Honda BR-V. But with the BR-V now gone, I guess that's no longer a relevant comparison. What's more shocking, however, is that the transmission has been retained from the pre-facelift version. Now, with the Xpander facelift, in most other markets, well, practically all other markets, the 480 has been swapped out for a slightly more efficient CVT. But specifically for the Malaysian market, we are retaining the old 480 torque converter. Speaking to MMM, they insist that the 480 has been retained for our market for its superior reliability and durability. And based on customer feedback, apparently most Malaysians would prefer a regular 480 over a CVT. So as it is to drive the engine, the gearbox feels exactly the same as before, which is to say it's just fine. It's not especially good, but it's not bad either. The engine is very smooth. When you start it up, you hardly feel any vibration at all. And even when you're stuck in traffic at full idle, you hardly ever feel any vibration coming off the steering wheel or the pedals or even the seats. It is very refined. However, each and every time you do step on the pedal, because there's only 4 speeds to choose from, the gearbox will more often than not drop 1 or 2 gears, and the engine will rise up in revs, and you do hear quite a bit of this engine. As you can hear, it's not bad of a sound, but it can be a little bit intrusive. If you're going uphill, it can feel a little bit underpowered at times. Well, I guess underpowered isn't really the right term to use, because it's not technically underpowered. It's fine even in steepest hills, but it does feel like it is struggling a little bit every now and then. As for whether a CVT would have improved on this, I am a little bit skeptical. I'm sure in terms of noise, a CVT will be a little bit louder, a little bit more drony as well. It's just that in terms of efficiency, the CVT is usually slightly better, slight improvement over a 480. But overall, this is a regular family MPV that you won't be driving hard anyway. A 480 feels just fine. I've always said this, I've got nothing against a properly tuned 480, but on the other hand, there's a lot to hate with bad CVTs. Next, moving on to ride and handling, the Xpander is still very good like before. Now, because it technically rides a little bit higher, its center of gravity has gone up by quite a few millimeters, you do feel a little bit of extra body roll if you try to push it through corners. That's only natural. You cannot fight the laws of physics. But then again, this is still an MPV. It's not the kind of car that you want to push through corners anyway. Even then, by the standards of MPVs, this is still one of the better handling ones. I think if you compare this against a Perodua Alza, a Toyota Veloz, this feels a little bit more natural to drive. The steering wheel is a bit more direct as well. But the body roll, this is still a largely softly sprung car. You do feel a lot of it, but at least you won't get too car sick in this. Comfort though is excellent. The Xpander has always been a very comfortable car to begin with, and this new version improves on that. The extra ride height, you can actually feel it because you do feel like you're sitting a bit higher than before, but the softer dampers can definitely be felt, especially if you're sitting in the back. There is a little bit of that wallowy, floaty feel at the back there, but in a good way. At low speeds, this definitely rides like a much more expensive car than it actually is. There's a little bit of that sophisticated ride quality that is missing in most budget MPVs. This feels like a class above basically, and it does so in a very quiet manner as well. But having said that, at extra legal speeds, above 110, 120, 130, it starts to feel a little bit too floaty, a little bit too bouncy on the highways. That is a small criticism that I can level at this car. Even then, it's still better than most of its competitors, especially the old Honda BR-V. Speaking of criticisms, I also can't not mention this new screen over here because it looks a little bit low res even on CarPlay. So yeah, I'm not a big fan. But having said that, it does offer quite a few new neat features, including blind controls. It's called blind controls because you can trigger certain functions by not even having to look at the screen. So you can focus your vision out on the roads, just reach in and use 2-3 fingers to control the volume, put it on mute, and change the track or radio stations. That is a pretty cool feature. Next, let's talk about refinement because that has been improved as well. In terms of road noise, this is quieter than before. This is a mixture of having slightly better rubber. These are now Bridgestone rather than Toyos from before, and perhaps the slightly higher ride height, so you are technically further away from the road. It does feel a little bit quieter than before. Overall, refinement has definitely been upped 1 or 2 notches, which brings it up to the top of the class. An MPV is meant to be doing a lot of, road trips with your friends and family. This comes in handy for all those journeys. Lastly, which is a bit of a downer, we gotta talk about safety because that has not been improved at all. This still retains just 2 airbags and electronic stability control, and that's where the safety list ends. There's still no AEB, autonomous emergency braking, there's no adaptive cruise control, there's no blind spot monitor. Yeah, it's really quite disappointing. But at the same time, you can't really blame Mitsubishi Motors Malaysia for it. You can blame Mitsubishi the brand, but not the local arm, because the Xpander was originally designed for the Indonesian market, which for some reason never really cared about vehicle safety. When it was designed, and specifically where it was designed for, 2 airbags and electronic stability control for a car like this was already considered to be a good thing. Nobody even thought of adding AEB, ADAS, 6 airbags, and so on. And that remains relevant still today in Indonesia. If you were to look at their local market Toyota Avanza as well as the Toyota Veloz, most of them still retain just 2 airbags and no ADAS in 2024 for a brand new car. So as it is right now, the Mitsubishi Xpander, it definitely pales in comparison against its newer rivals such as the Perodua Alza and the Toyota Veloz. With cars in Malaysia, I will always criticize the brand if they specifically choose to downspec cars for our market. With the Xpander over here, Mitsubishi Motors Malaysia really had no choice. The car is not available with additional safety features anywhere in the world. This is what they have, and this is what they can market. It's unfortunate, that's just how it is. That will always be a big sticking point for this car. So I guess you'll have to balance out the pros and cons when you choose a small MPV like this. Now, against its competitors, in terms of safety, this is a definite downgrade. But with most other things, I would say the Xpander is actually better than most of its rivals. It drives better, it definitely rides better as well, and in terms of practicality, this is really, really good. You can still fit 7 adults in here, and the seats, the front one especially, are very comfortable. The middle row, less so, but you do get a lot of adjustments available to you. You can slide it back and forth, you can recline the backrest as well. There's a lot of neat practicality touches scattered across the cabin as well. The front passenger seat has a nice drawer where you can fit in your shoes and whatnot. There's a lot of pockets for you to fit in your iPads, your phones, or if you're a little bit old school, your newspapers or magazines and whatnot behind the front seats. That's a nice touch too. But my favorite part is this right here. The armrest is new, but if you flip that up, there's actually a special tissue compartment that you can just pull out. I think that is genius. So that's pretty much all I can say about this new Mitsubishi Xpander facelift. Over to you, what do you think of the new looks? How do you rate it against its competitors? Do let me know in the comments section below. Thank you for watching everyone, and stay safe.